Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Want to know the key to a worry-free retirement? Well, it's not how much money you're going to have in the future, but rather knowing for certain how much money you can spend in it.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the Worry-Free Retirement, with your host, nationally recognized retirement specialist and six-time author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
When it comes to this notion of creating a worry-free retirement, one of the discoveries I've made in working in this business for so long and in meeting with thousands of savers who are retired or nearing retirement is this. The most common mistake a saver can make is not trying to time the stock market, nor locating and securing the highest paying investment, nor seeing how much they can stockpile for the future, but rather the most common ingredient left off the retirement planning checklist is forgetting that cash flow is king. That's right, folks. When you boil it all down, retirement in its simplest form includes only one objective in being worry-free in retirement, and it is this: to be certain throughout retirement that there is always more money coming in the front door than there is going out the back door. But Tony, you might be thinking, surely being worry-free in retirement is not this simple, is it? Well, it is simple as long as you have a written game plan to follow. So, let me explain. Well, welcome, folks, to the Worry-Free Retirement. And yes, I'm that little man in the sweater vest, cash flow king specialist and fiduciary, Tony Walker. And before we get started teaching you how to make sure there's more money coming in the front door than there is heading out the back, let me introduce two young lads in the Worry-Free studios who help keep these doors open each day. America's favorite financial sidekick, Mr. Aaron Orander, along with Louisville, Kentucky's most laid-back graphics artist, Mr. Derek Hudson. Okay, let's go back to a Tony in the Trenches we covered a few weeks ago that went something like this. Tony, how do you turn a 401k plan into a monthly paycheck? My response? That's easy. Yet, I also understand why so many savers worry about quitting work and no longer receiving a steady paycheck, and how in the world they're going to replace that paycheck with a predictable monthly income that is supposed to last all the way through retirement. Add in all the taxes you'll owe on your retirement accounts when you go to spend it, and you've got a daunting and scary task indeed. Just think about it. You are going to quit work and retire, which also means you will no longer be receiving that regular, steady paycheck from your employer, a paycheck that was automatically deposited every 2 weeks or so into your checking account with all the taxes withheld for you. But now that you're retired, that's about to end. Now, you are the one who has to figure out how much you're going to safely withdraw and spend from that tax-infested 401k plan. You are the one who will have to decide how much to withhold in the way of taxes, and finally, it is up to you to make sure that you don't allow more money to go out the back door than is coming in the front. Folks, you don't have to look at it as losing a paycheck when you retire. You just need to know how to replace that paycheck, and that's where we at Tony Walker Financial come to the rescue. You see, with over 3,000 clients and through our assistance, we make sure our clients have that steady paycheck that will not only make sure more money is coming in the front door than going out the back, but we also handle all the tax withholdings and make sure that our clients move through retirement and that money is going to last as long as they do. I call it retirement cash flow. And that's why I like to say that in retirement, cash flow is king, which is why today I'm going to show you how to take the fear out of retirement by replacing that paycheck you just lost with something even more dependable. That's right, something we call
mailbox money.
So stay tuned. I'm Tony Walker. We will be right back. Did you realize that if you have more than $250,000 in retirement assets, the government could tax as much as 40% of it when you go to take it out? And with current tax rates set to expire in 2025, the taxes you will owe on your 401k could climb even higher. Don't wait until 2025 to see how much Uncle Sam will take of your money. Get a game plan by logging on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
And now it's time for Tony in the Trenches.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement. I am America's favorite financial sidekick, Mr. Aaron Ornder, and I've got our TNT right here for today, so let's get to it, okay? Now this comes to us from Richard over in LaRue County, and he asks, Tony, I keep seeing ads on TV about something called a reverse mortgage. What is a reverse mortgage? Why would anyone do a reverse mortgage? And how do I know if I'm a good candidate for one?
Now that's a great question, Richard, and one that I've been asked for years. So instead of relying on Tom Selleck to explain the benefits of a reverse mortgage, I decided to write a summary of what a reverse mortgage is and the pros and cons of it. This free download can be found at our homepage at TonyWalkerFinancial.com. So if you're over the age of 62 and wondering if a reverse mortgage might be something you wish to use to address what we call retirement cash flow, I highly recommend you read this first before seriously entertaining a reverse mortgage. And always remember this, a reverse mortgage may not be a bad resort, but it should always be your last resort. Oh, speaking of reverse mortgages to help with cash flow in retirement, this was an interesting article explaining why more and more larger homes and those with higher net worths are now starting to consider reverse mortgages. Again, just some food for thought as to why it is important to find ways to always make sure there is more money coming in the front door than heading out the back. So let's get back to our topic, why cash flow is king, and how our expertise at Tony Walker Financial in assisting our clients in managing retirement cash flow is one of the keys to a worry-free retirement. Simply put, retirement cash flow measures the amount of money you have coming in the front door compared to the amount of money you have going out the back. Now, what I've found in working with thousands of savers in retirement is a basic lack of understanding of this guide and the guiding principle that must be followed. The reason is simple. To follow the front door, back door way of cash flow while you're working is due to the way you were paid by your employer. Think about this. When you're working every 2 weeks or whenever you got paid, whatever the case may be, your employer paid you and withheld all those taxes that needed to be withheld. All you were left to do is make sure you didn't spend more than was deposited into your checking account. But now that you're retired, you've got to figure out what you're going to do on your own. In other words, to be worry-free and to make sure you are spending the appropriate amount of money each month, you have 3 options to replace that paycheck you were once receiving and now trying to turn that 401k into a steady paycheck that's supposed to last as long as you do. Your first option, you could have more money coming in the front door than heading out the back, meaning you will be saving more and more money for the future and spending less now, which is okay by me, but you will possibly be putting off things you should be doing now to a later point when you can't, something we call old age. In other words, you don't want to wait too long to spend and enjoy your money. Now, there's a second option in retirement cash flow, and that's less money coming in the front door and more money going out the back door, which over time, of course, is a recipe for disaster and will create boatloads of worry down the road. Finally, number 3, the perfect picture of retirement cash flow is to match the money coming in the front door with an equal amount of money going out the back door, which of course aligns with our philosophy of what we call live well, die broke. A concept that our saver clients enjoy knowing that they need to have that game plan in place, which allows them to use and enjoy the money before it's too late, but also gives them the assurance and the certainty that they won't run out of money. Folks, retirement is not just where to invest that 401k plan, but rather how much you can comfortably withdraw from it while keeping your taxes, fees, and risk to a minimum. Of course, that's our job at Tony Walker Financial. And while articles like this might discourage savers from enjoying their money, we have no problem with our clients dipping into retirement savings, assuming they have a written game plan that allows us to monitor their retirement cash flow. I know this sounds very basic, but it is crucial to the retirement plan. And that's the problem. Most people that I meet don't have a plan, so they never really have a feeling or comfort level with how much they can spend and enjoy. So here's the bottom line. Without a written game plan being monitored by a local retirement planning firm like Tony Walker Financial, there is no way you're going to feel comfortable spending more and more money in retirement. Eventually, you'll begin to worry because of the uncertainty of one day possibly running out of money. Oh, speaking of more money going out the back door than coming in the front, as you know, I am a big advocate for what we call pre-planning your funeral. But listen, not at the expense of negatively impacting your cash flow. As evidenced by one of our clients who called us the other day, and she had been to a funeral home to pre-plan her funeral, which apparently they escorted her right over to some paperwork, and before she knew it, she had obligated herself to a $300 a month payment for over a 10-year period to prepay this funeral, which ends up being well over $30,000.
Heavy.
Folks, that's ridiculous and something I would never advocate, to tie up this much money and impact your cash flow in such a negative way. So certainly consider prepaid funerals, but be careful out there at hog-tying your money by committing too much to that prepaid funeral. Bottom line is, you don't want to finance away your monthly cash flow trying to prepay a funeral. Okay, when I return, I'm going to share with you a case study of how we used our split IRA concept, along with the reality of the 3 halves of life, to help this 62-year-old couple who was nervous about all things being an election year and the possibility of their 401k turning into a 201k. Good stuff coming your way. I'm Tony Walker. We will be right back.
Hello, folks. I'm Wes Walker, Tony's nephew and one of the fiduciaries on staff. I just wanted to give a quick example of how we manage risk and cash flow in retirement. We had a client come on board in January of 2020. She was in her mid-70s and recently widowed. At the time, she had about $140,000 in various IRAs and about $230,000 in non-qualified assets, along with $40,000 in cash and a paid-for home. Both the $140,000 in the IRA and the $230,000 in the non-qualified account were nearly all in stocks. Between her Social Security and her pension, she had about $23,000 in annual income. We moved over her IRAs into an annuity that we immediately took income from of $9,500 per year. So at this point, we've taken about 40% of the risk she had off the table by moving those stocks in the IRA to an annuity whose income she could never outlive. We moved over the non-qualified assets, what they call in kind, meaning we kept the holdings she had prior. We continued to monitor these, and at a recent client check-in, we determined she was ready to take off more risk from the table. The problem was, however, that from being 100% in stocks and the stock market doing well, she had about $115,000 in unrealized capital gains. So we did the following. We determined that based on her tax situation, she could realize about $40,000 of those capital gains per year and not affect her Medicare premiums or cause any sort of tax headache. We plan on following this strategy in 2024 and over the next 2 years to gradually move her to a risk tolerance that makes more sense for her age and situation.
Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement. And as we record this show on April 2nd, 2024, there is a storm brewing out there, and our own Aaron Orender has asked me to put off recording the rest of the show, but you know me, I'm not going to let a little chance of a storm keep me from doing what needs to be done.
Tony, I'd keep playing. I don't think the heavy stuff's going to come down for quite a while.
All right, back to the show here. One of the most common questions I've received, and starting to get even more and more this year in 2024, is this. Tony, with this being an election year, do you think the stock market will go up or down? Well, that's a great question, but my question would be answered by the famous Dick Walker quote, who knows? So this graph tracks the historical returns of the market during election years. And basically what we're finding here is blue would represent when a Democrat is elected, red would be in a Republican, but it's up and down and it doesn't really matter. In other words, it doesn't discriminate who's a Republican or who's a Democrat. So again, who knows what in the world is going to happen during this election year, which is all the more reason I got to say this is all about cash flow. This has nothing to do with trying to time the stock market or predict who the next president will be. That's not what we're in the business of doing. In fact, I'm going to share with you this example, this case. Very interesting case. We'll go over to the whiteboard here. And this came up. You'll see what I responded here. I basically told these folks that cash flow is king when we went into this conversation. And it started out about an election year. Prospective clients, they'd seen my show. They've got a lot of money right now in the stock market in their 401k plan. Again, he's going to be retiring soon. She's already retired. He currently has about $1 million in his 401k plan. She has $200,000. Okay, all is well in Mudville. Again, as of the date of the recording, everything looks great, but he is concerned. And I'm concerned for him because my thoughts are, why take all this risk if you don't have to? The problem is he had no game plan. He had no idea on how to measure the cash flow needs. So I'm going to show you this simple chart that I went through in my head and what I go through with everybody when I'm meeting with them. In fact, put this up full screen, Aaron. You see, folks, you've got to understand retirement is not this deal where you spend more and more money as you get older. Actually, there will be a point where you start spending less. We call that the second half of life. These folks are in what we call halftime. So if we think about this $1.2 million, what I have to ask them is I said, okay, how much money do we actually need going out the back door? See where I'm starting this? Because back door really means expenses, all right? So at halftime, you want to be able to use and enjoy this money. Your expenses, that is what you decide you're going to spend, whether it's travel or things for the kids and grandkids, is going to be higher. In this case, he said, well, we're going to need at least $7,000 a month. And I said, no problem, but that means we're going to need roughly $10,000 a month coming in the front door because, again, he's got a lot of taxes he's got to deal with, and we have to account for those taxes. You see, again, remember this idea of having that payroll check and all that stuff withheld for you. Nobody's going to help you with that in the real world except us. We will do all of the withholdings, everything, especially if it's in Charles Schwab, for a whopping 0.8%. It's about half of what most of these money managers are charging you, and I can assure you they're not providing the level of service we offer at Tony Walker Financial. But here's what I reminded them of. They saw the game plan. They saw the account balances gradually coming down. That's what you want to happen, folks. You want to spend this money. And then I said, you know what? One of these days you're going to be in the second half. You're going to be in your 70s, and your backdoor expenses, and this is barring some sort of financial catastrophe, probably will drop to $4,000 or $5,000 a month. And I asked him, I said, are your parents still alive? And he said, yeah, my parents are alive. I said, how much do you think they spend a month? He laughed at that. He said, well, they're in their 80s. I don't even think they spend that much. So, folks, you have to remember, retirement planning is more of an art than a science. You can't use a retirement calculator. You need somebody trained in this. And obviously, in this example, that means we need less coming in the front door, which means we can preserve more of that IRA and 401k plan. So here's my question, folks. If you don't have a truly trained retirement planning specialist, somebody you can meet in person, somebody who's personally seen and overseen more than 5,000 written game plans, my question is, why not? Here's what I suggest. Take advantage of talking to me, Tony Walker, the owner of the company, in what we call the free fiduciary phone call. It only takes a few minutes, and again, there is no cost or obligation. And then after we talk, if it looks like we can be of help, we're going to meet with you in person. That's right, in person at either our Bowling Green, Louisville, or Lexington, Kentucky offices. So do it now, right now. If you're retiring soon, maybe you got an old 401k over there that needs some help, we're here to help you take care of that. So just log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com or give us a call at 877-499-9255. Well, does the Bible have anything to say about cash flow? Not really, but it does have something to say about the leap of faith you'll need to latch on to God and let go of the world. I'm Tony Walker. Let me get another cup of coffee. I'll be right back.
So we were wrapping up an episode the other day, and Tony calls me over for something. I was diligently at work, but I pop up and I dash over there to see what's going on, and he asked me for a cup of coffee. I asked him if the store brand would be all right, and he said, no, only the Starbucks will do. There's a nicer way of saying that, but admittedly in the past, he has said if I drank cheap coffee, I'd die. I only asked because that morning I unfortunately had the last Starbucks. All we had left was tea, decaf, and the cheap stuff. So I thought I'd do some digging and see if we had any extra laying around, but unfortunately we seem to be completely out. So I think about it and I just decide I'm gonna have to take the risk and hope he doesn't notice a difference. So I hand him his coffee and I watch intently for any reaction, and it seems like I'm in the clear. You know, sometimes working for Tony can be a bit of a challenge, but as long as you're a quick thinker, you can usually get by pretty well. I'd like to think that he and I... never mind.
Our employee spotlight shines brightly today on Miss Lisa Allerkamp. Lisa, good morning.
Good morning.
And tell the audience when you started at Tony Walker Financial.
I started at the firm in February 2017.
And currently, a little bit about your duties. I know you're really in charge of the income planning department, but just kind of describe what you do and the rest of the folks in your department.
Sure, we create the income plans or the game plans for our clients. We take your recommendations and lay them out in a game plan that's detailed and includes taxes, Social Security, RMDs, and when and how to access each account.
And I want to compliment you and the group of individuals that do those income plans. It's so exciting for me to present those plans, and when most of these people have never seen anything like it. So kudos to you in keeping up with that. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Tony.
So what is the most enjoyable part of your job at Tony Walker Financial?
Well, I enjoy the opportunity to create the plans and just be a part of producing such a tool that's helpful to our clients in their retirement.
And I think we did. How many did we do in 2023?
901.
That's amazing. Well, yeah, we're into the thousands now, so hopefully many more years to come, but thank you so much.
Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome. The idea of making an abrupt change in life, such as going to work for 40 years and receiving a paycheck, to now stopping work and no longer getting one, certainly requires a lot of faith. Faith that the money coming in the front door will be able to cover that which is going out the back door. And faith that in the process in retirement, you won't one day run out of money. Fortunately for our clients, our well-trained retirement planning staff is continually meeting the needs of our more than 3,000 clients by making sure their worries are taken care of and that we are doing all we can to be sure that they are worry-free in retirement. Incidentally, after meeting with all these savers, I've discovered that the two biggest concerns for those considering retirement are as follows. Number one, what to do with all their free time. And number two, knowing for certain how much money they can spend from their 401k plan in retirement. Yet, this abrupt change in life of no longer receiving a paycheck from your employer and now having to create one from your 401k is reason to understand why a lack of faith in one's future to be worry-free is the real deal. In other words, with any serious decision in life that requires a leap of faith, there's one key ingredient that must be in place before you leap, and that's your faith. Whether it's the leap of faith required to quit work and retire, or the leap of faith required to stop following the ways of the world and instead start following God. So here's what faith looks like as defined by God. Let's turn to Hebrews 11:1 for help, where it simply says, faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction, or I like to say the certainty, of things not seen. That's it. Pretty simple. And as we think about our retirement and the faith or lack thereof in maintaining a steady paycheck throughout retirement, one key word found in this definition is the word certainty. You see, for a saver to be worry-free in retirement, there must be some measure of certainty baked into the financial plan. The need for certainty is why I suggest savers who are retired or nearing retirement not put so much of their money in the stock market, because it's due to the uncertainty that the stock market holds. Yes, even the uncertainty of what an election year might bring. It's a fact. If you want to create more worry in the future, just create more uncertainty in the things you're trying to do today. The goal of the worry-free retirement process It requires you to reduce or even try to eliminate things with your money that we know create this feeling of uncertainty. It's the planning aspect of what we do that hopefully keeps our clients' 401ks and IRAs and other retirement accounts in check so that they quickly don't overnight become 201ks. You know, what the Bible reminds us of is this: to have hope in the future, there must be a measure of certainty that requires faith because of what is not yet seen but what we know will happen. And Hebrews 11:1 reminds us that we serve a complicated God who is not yet seen, but by His grace gives us a path to follow through the seen and visible pattern set by His Son, Jesus Christ. Yet we are always reminded that as we scratch and fight our way through the trials and tribulations of this thing called life, our faith in the finished work of Christ will constantly be tested by the things we see. That's just part of the gig. You know, the Apostle Paul struggled with the same thing, where he had to remind himself that hope that is seen is no hope at all, for who hopes for what he can already see? Knowing that his hope must rely on things not seen did not deter Paul in his faith. No, he simply acknowledged that in order to keep the faith, he had to fix his eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen. Paul knew that what is seen, that's the things of the world, are temporary, but what is unseen, well, those are the things of God. Those are the eternal things that, my friend, you and I can take to the bank. Well, speaking of hope and faith in your future and trying to create more certainty around it, I've got a question for you. What is it you hope to do with all your money in retirement before it's too late? And just as important, who are you placing your faith in to be sure that you are doing everything possible to make sure that there's always more money coming in the front door than heading out the back? Well, my name is Tony Walker, and assuming you don't have your faith in your future retirement and those who are chasing after your money, we need to talk. And we've made this really easy, and best of all, it's free and comes to you without any obligation whatsoever. We call it the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call, and here's how easy it is to speak with me, the owner of the company, about your personal situation. All you got to do right now, just log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Click on that little Let's Get Started button. That information will be confidentially sent to our offices, and we will arrange that phone call right away. Internet not your thing? You can call the toll-free number on your screen 24/7. In fact, if it's over the weekend, we have live operators that will take your call, and then first thing Monday, we will call to arrange that free phone call. So do it now, TonyWalkerFinancial.com, or call us at 877-499-9255. Well, we hope you've enjoyed today's program. In fact, we thought this was so good, we're going to have Cash Flow is King Part 2 next week. But you remember, between now and then, if all else fails, you be worry-free and make it a good one.